Hey, this is Jamie from Stonespine Games, and today I'm recording this on June 25th, 2024. I'm going to talk about my top 10 favorite games of the year so far. I I don't even have a great estimate of how many games I played so far this year. Probably around 70 to 80 games. I don't know exactly. And for this list, so I don't think I've done this type of list before, this type of mid-year list. But I'm kind of excited to do it, especially since I'm going to throw out all rules that I normally have. Normally, when I do these end of year lists, I categorize things. I have like a favorite campaign game, a favorite expansion, a favorite digital game, a favorite newer game, a favorite older game. None of that applies to this list. Threw out all the rules, and I said, I'm just going to talk about my 10 favorite games that I've played for the first time this year. That's it. 10 favorite games that I've played for the first time this year. And while I'm talking about this, I hope you think about it too, because I would love to hear your top 10, top 5, top 3, top number 1, if you can think of your favorite game that you've played so far this year. Let me know in the comments below. Let's start out with ambassador picks. I polled Stonespine ambassadors about their favorite games that they played for the first time in 2024. And their picks in roughly alphabetical order are Apiary, Distilled, Dune, Imperium, Uprising, Expeditions, The Fox Experiment, Fractured Sky, Let's Go to Japan, Scholars of the South Tigris, Sky Team, Star Wars Unlimited, the Spots, The White Castle, Ticket to Ride Legacy, Voidfall, and Wyrmspan. And let's get to my honorable mentions. So these are games that I genuinely enjoyed, that I will definitely play again, but just didn't quite make the top 10. You know how these lists work. So I have Balatro, Eastshade. So those two are digital games. The Seventh Citadel, a campaign game. Flame and Fang, also a campaign game. Star Wars Unlimited, Surfosaurus Max, Pixies, which is on Board Game Arena that I've played. I've only played it there so far. The Witcher Old World, Harmonies, Charcuterie, Foundations of Rome, Faraway, Splendor Duel, Ito, and Distilled. And even as I'm saying these games, I'm like, on any given day, some of these could probably be in the top 10 because I really do enjoy these games. I look forward to playing them again. But my top 10, we're going to start out with Slay the Spire. So Slay the Spire is a cooperative game based on the digital roguelike game Slay the Spire, where you're deck building, you're upgrading the cards in your deck, you're working your way through a series of escalatingly difficult monsters, although there isn't as much escalation in the tabletop game that I am aware of. That happens more in the digital game. But the core hook of the tabletop game being that the math is simpler. They've simplified the math a little bit, so you can actually do the calculations that the game is asking you to do. You're cooperating, so you have other players that you're cooperating with, even though, so you can see here in this lineup, and these miniatures are actually colored in the final version. If this is my character, I will randomly select a monster or an opponent, an enemy to fight against me, and this character had this random opponent selected, and it had a little note on the card saying you need to put another one out here. And that's how there ends up being more than one opponent sometimes. But so we each have these enemies that are going to attack us, but we're cooperating because we can actually attack any of the enemies. So you are constantly talking with other players, like what is the top priority? Who can handle the enemies that they're facing right now versus who needs some help, who needs other players to jump in there and attack them first. You're also cooperating with other players to decide what path to take on this little route. And then there's still plenty of decisions that you're making on your own in terms of which cards do you select after an encounter and you get a few different cards. Which one do you select to permanently add to your deck? And each character's deck is completely unique. Like you have this giant stack of cards that you're selecting from to use. And you're not selecting for the whole stack. You're drawing 3 cards from that stack, and you're selecting 1 to add to your deck. And you're also deciding at certain times to upgrade cards, which I thought would be annoying in the game because they're all the cards are sleeved, and you have to like unslide the card from the sleeve and then look at it and decide if that's the card that you want to upgrade and then put it back in the sleeve. But it actually wasn't annoying at all. It was rather tactically nice that you get to look at these cards and decide which ones to upgrade. You just flip them around to the upgraded side. That was really nice. And also, I mentioned in my original video about the game, Slay the Spire uses a single D6 die to do so many different things. On any given round, you're going to roll this die, and it determines things like which attack all the enemies will do. There's certain cards that you may accumulate that trigger off of a certain roll, but you're not rolling this die for every different card. you're rolling it once. So in this round, like this is a 5 round. So we're only looking at the number 5 consistently throughout the entire game. This is such a smart design decision. I talked about it in the video before, but just I definitely, as a game designer, would have made the dumb decision of having a different die for every card. Instead, the game designer here chose one single die per round, and that way you only have to know one number for the entire round. It's such a smart game design decision. I've only played this game so far once. I played through one act, and it felt like a full game to me to play through one act, even though it is a 3-act game. And I look forward to playing again. It's lower down on my list just because there were some games that I'm slightly more excited to play. But I really did have a great time playing Slay the Spire at number 10. And I talked about it probably all the way too long already. My next game on the list is the only digital game that ended up making the list. The one that I'm most excited to play again, and that is the game Blueprints. So in Blueprints, you are walking through a house using a first-person perspective to walk as you're steering through the house and also looking through these rooms that you're walking through. And whenever you walk into a room, you lose a footprint. And these are one of the ways that can kind of end the round for you. Similar to Slay the Spire, the deck building game, or digital or tabletop game, this is a roguelike game. So you're trying to survive as long as possible through a series of challenges that are randomized. And the challenge in this game is, or the random challenges in a way, are the rooms. You're trying to fill a 5x9 grid, so 45 different rooms with 46 rooms. So you're trying to find the 46th room. I have not beaten the game yet. I don't know exactly how to do that. I am just trying to fill up this grid with 45 rooms while using kind of my stamina here, my endurance. Whenever I walk into a room, whether it's one that I've visited in the past or in the future, whenever I walk into a room, I use a footstep. So I expend some of my energy. It's a countdown clock in a way. So you're trying to align these rooms together as you're walking through them, so that you don't have to you don't have to backtrack as little as possible. The other core hook, though, is that while you're walking through these rooms, when you walk into a new room that you haven't walked into before, you are given 3 tiles from which to draft. So this is kind of like in Slay the Spire, where you're given 3 cards and you choose one to add to your deck. In this game, you're choosing from 3 tiles to permanently add that tile as the room that you're walking into right now. And they do different things, like the storeroom here gives you a key, a gem, a coin. These are resources that you can use throughout the game. Hallway just has a lot of different exits and entrances, because the other way that your round can kind of end in this game is if you close off all the exits. So if you don't have it, like if I chose 3 storerooms or 3 storeroom-like rooms from the very beginning, I would have no way to get out of those rooms, and that's it. I can't explore any further. And then the bedroom, it says, whenever you enter this room, gain 2 footsteps. You kind of want to position the bedroom at a strategically wise place so that you can walk through it fairly often, because you are not really losing any footsteps to walk through the bedroom. So I love this element of the combination of a first-person perspective and exploring this mansion, and the decision you have as to where to place these tiles in the mansion itself. Really great game. I've only actually even played the demo version of it, but I look forward to buying it when I'm able to buy it. But if you are watching this video when it's still available as a demo, I highly recommend checking out Blueprints as my number 9 game. At number 8, I have, I guess, another game where I'm placing tiles in a grid so that I can walk through them. Maybe that's the theme of this year so far. Stonespine Architects. This is a game in the world of Ulos where you are building a dungeon. You're building a dungeon with these tiles, or these cards. They're cards, but they act as tiles in this game. Each round is a 4-round game. You are going to end up drafting cards so that you place 4 cards in a row, and you can place them in the order that you want, but you are going to complete this row in round 1, and then this row in round 2, and then 3 and 4 to complete this 4x4 grid over the course of the game. And to do so, it's similar to Role Player in that you are trying to solve lots of different puzzles based on, or trying to satisfy lots of different goals based on where you place these tiles. So there's a goal right here that you have. It's a spatial goal. This goal wants you to place certain types of things in specific places in this 4x4 grid. There are global goals that we're sharing up here. There are private goals that you can acquire, or maybe this might actually be the global goal, and these are the goals that you can acquire throughout the game. And you are just trying to create the longest passage possible from the entrance and the exit. 2 different goals there, but in terms of a longest passage goal that you're trying to complete. I think all these goals intersect in ways that are really satisfying. It's a tough puzzle. It would be fairly easy, I think, to accomplish one of these, but to accomplish multiple goals in one is a difficult puzzle. I think it scales really well. I've really enjoyed my experience playing this game 2-player and at higher player counts. At 2-player, the draft is slightly different, but it's really satisfying to do this draft at 2-player, just as it is at higher player counts. And by draft, I mean that you have a hand of cards, and then you're passing that hand of cards to the next player. And there's also, I didn't even mention, there's these little tokens that come out that you can acquire at the end of the round to place on the cards that you already have. So yes, you have certain limitations in terms of the entrances, the exit, the icons that you have on the cards, but you can acquire new icons to even create new entrances, exits, and new icons on the cards themselves. So a lot of flexibility in terms of how you accomplish these goals. That's Stonespine Architects at number 8 on this list. At number 7, we have Let's Go to Japan. This is a game that I've really enjoyed teaching and playing because it is a Euro game that really does tell a story. And that the first half of the game, fully simultaneous play, you are planning a week trip to Japan where you are ending up putting 3 cards on 6 different days of the week, ordering them as you wish so that the last card remaining, and not necessarily the last card that you place, but the last card, the fully visible card here, you have a special goal that you're trying to accomplish on that card. So the top half of the card shows you how many points you're getting from those cards and the resources that you're gathering from top to bottom. It's as if you start your Wednesday with sushi at the Tsukiji market. Sorry, Tsukiji market. You're getting yakitori and the Omiode Yokojo. And then you were going to Sensoji Temple and Nakamamise here. So you're going from start to finish. And then at the end of that day, based on the resources that you've acquired and your current status in the game, so if you have this right here, if you have these 2, I forget what it's called, but it's a negative thing in the game, then you get 2 points for every pair of these tokens that you have. So throughout the game, you're trying to decide what will be the highlight of your day. How will you end your day? And that will determine the major way of how you score points that day. So there's that little story of the game. The whole simultaneous half of the game where you're planning this trip, planning which will be your highlights of the day. And then at the end of the game, day by day, players go through their week. So everyone does their Monday, everyone does their Tuesday, and so on, gaining resources, scoring points to show what their trip through Japan actually looked like. I love the theme of the game. Works really, really well. Research, I think the designer did a great amount of research for this game, as I think he was actually planning a trip to Japan. And I've actually used this to help me plan my trip to Japan a little bit. But yeah, it's one of these Euro games where the theme and mechanism intersect so well for a really satisfying experience. And I have found that I really love these simultaneous games. It speeds up the game quite a bit, but there's still a break in the action at the end of the game to actually see what other players did as they tell their story of their week. So that is number 7, Let's Go to Japan. And number 6 is Dune Imperium Uprising, the sequel, the new addition in a way to Dune Imperium, one of my favorite games of all time. I really, really love this new edition of the game. It does a lot of subtle new things. Like there are new spies that you can place on the board that give you access to different worker placement action spots. So like if I put my red spy here, even if I get blocked off from these action spots, I can remove that spy to place a worker there if a card allows me to place a worker there. There are, in the previous game, there was a benefit that you could get if you had 2 Fremen influence. In this Uprising, they did something like that for every different faction. There's a special bonus you can get if you have up to 2 influence in that faction. So I really like that. Another reason to get this point, to move up to get this point, is that you unlock that benefit for that specific faction. It adds sandworms, which doubled they give you 3 strength in combat, and they double the benefit that you receive in combat, which is pretty powerful. What else is new in this game? Some of the action spots have been redefined and changed. Some of the benefits on the influence track have been changed a little bit. But overall, I didn't have to learn all that much, which was nice. I already knew Dune Imperium really well. I didn't have to relearn all that many things to play Dune Imperium Uprising. And I've just had a lot of fun playing it. It's probably the longest game on this list, but if I have the time, I am definitely always down for playing Dune Imperium Uprising. At number 5, I have kind of a game on the opposite end of the spectrum, Bag of Chips, Slightly older game, so not a newer game. Very short, very light, but really, really satisfying to play. And whenever someone brings this out, I am happy to play Bag of Chips. The whole idea in the game is that you are choosing which goals from a hand of cards that you're given at the beginning of the game, which goals to try to accomplish, and to say, I am going to try to accomplish this. And a goal to say that you are not going to accomplish it. You're going to avoid accomplishing the goal. And then a few different goals face down here that you don't care about, that they don't score either way. You're just putting them face down. They don't matter. So it's just kind of an interesting hand management, hand crafting element where you are declaring, you have the set hand of cards. You're not getting any more cards throughout the game, but you're deciding which of those cards you are going to pursue for their goals. And by pursue, I mean, you have no control over the goals at all, or over whether or not you're going to accomplish the goals. You're purely kind of betting on which goals that you think the game will accomplish for you. Because the whole game is round by round, you are drawing a few chips out of the bag to put on these round cards. You have no control over the chips that are drawn. The game tells you exactly how many chips to draw, and it's just completely random, and all players share these chips. So you are simply kind of in a way pushing your luck as to which goals, which chips that come out of this bag will match up with the goals that you have. So for example, this goal is saying that you'll score 8 points for every green chip that's out here. And 4 green chips ended up coming out here. But this player didn't know this throughout the game. In the first round, they didn't know that any green chips would come out. In this round, they're like, okay, now it's looking good. I know 2 green chips are out there. This is worth at least 16 points. This card is saying that the player wanted more green chips than yellow chips to be out there. And that looks like it didn't happen. It looks like there are equal numbers of green chips and yellow chips. So they didn't accomplish this goal. They don't lose anything, but they don't get these 45 points on the card. And the clever thing, I think, at the end of each round is that you compare your total points for that round. So say at the end of this round, I had 16 points. If I have the most points of anyone in this round, I get 2 scoring tokens, and then whoever got second place gets 1 scoring token. But after that, the points wipe out. They don't matter anymore. So you're not constantly accumulating points and having these points matter throughout the entire game. It just matters for that one round, and then it's distilled down to 1 or 2 of these tokens. And once you have 4 tokens, you win the game. So I've just essentially described the game here, but I really like this game. It does some things that I think are really, really clever in multiple ways for a very simple, streamlined game. Even as I'm talking about it, it's one that I might try to bring to a family reunion coming up soon, because I think this would go over well with my family. That's Bag of Chips. And number 4, I have MLEM. So MLEM is about cats in space. So this is another push your luck game that requires a little bit of working together with other players, but it is a competitive game where each round you are placing one of your cat astronauts on this ship and blasting off. And the person who is at the top of the ship, they are leading this expedition into outer space, and they are determining how far they will, at least how far they will stay on the ship, and oftentimes how far, based on the dice that they choose, how far they will progress along this trek to get further into space. At any time when the ship stops, players on the ship from top to bottom can decide if they want to get off. They want to get off the ship and go on a moon. They can go on a planet. They can go into deep space. And these all score different points. There are also some goals that you're trying to accomplish, kind of a first 2 goal, like the first player to have I think there's one to here's one that says you want 3 of your tokens, your cat astronauts, on the same planet, or to be on 4 different planets, or to be on 4 different moons, things like that. Be the first to achieve those goals. So there is a reason to pay attention to other players. But I think what I like the most about the game is that it is a competitive game with lots of positive player interaction, where the cats that you're choosing to place on this ship, they're variable. They each have a different ability, 8 different abilities, I believe. And many of them are positive. They are helping everyone on that ship get a little bit further into space. That feels really good. I really like that you're working together a little bit. This is a little bit like Celestia, but I feel like it has a little less take that than Celestia. And it's fully transparent. You're not hiding any cards from anyone like in Celestia. You have your information on the ship. You have your ability there. Everyone knows what your ability is on the ship itself. The main difficult decision I think that's made in the game is by the captain of the current captain of the ship itself, where they're deciding from the dice that they rolled, if they have multiple options, which dice they'll choose. Oh, and there's also the afterburners. I love the afterburners. So that when you roll afterburners, well, I'll back up for a second. When you roll dice and select the dice, if the ship is on like this spot, for example, and you roll a couple threes and a couple fours, you are either choosing threes and or fours to determine how far your ship is going to move, and you have to use all of the numbers that you choose. So if I choose threes, I have to use all the threes, and those dice are gone. I cannot use them for the rest of the expedition. But the afterburners remain available. So if I'm on this spot and I roll ones, or I roll, and I choose the afterburners dice stay in that selection, stay in that dice pool for the rest of the expedition. So it's a nice little way to mitigate this loss of dice as you go further and further into space. Anyway, I love MLEM. I've had a great time with it. I look forward to playing it again. Not on Board Game Arena, though. Only in person. It does not work as well on Board Game Arena. I recommend playing this game in person on the tabletop. That's MLEM at number 4. And number 3 is perhaps the biggest surprise on this list. This isn't a game that I backed on Kickstarter. I played a friend's copy, but I had a wonderful time playing the game Skyrise. Skyrise is a quick, simple turn auction game where on your turn, you are choosing one of your buildings and you are placing it adjacent to the previously placed building on the board. So it's the spatial auction of if you bid. So if I bid here, as you can see in the visual, the next player to bid must bid in an adjacent available space. In this case, actually, so I could place one in this yellow area right here. Maybe in this, no, that's not an area. I can't place in this area because there's already a building there. I can place in this yellow area or this white area. And I put a bid down. I put a building down with a number on it. And then the next player, if they want to go, they can place a building adjacent to that and with a higher number, and so on until no one else wants to place or no one else can place. Based on how this spatial auction changes throughout the game, you might get locked in and there's no other place that you can place a building. But this reminds me a lot of Ra. In Ra, you have a limited number of bidding tiles. In this game, Skyrise, you have a limited number of buildings that you're using to bid. But at the same time, there's this spatial element added to the auction of where exactly are you going to where exactly are you going to place these buildings, and which spaces on the board are you going to go after? How are you going? Can you even position yourself a little bit so that no one can outbid you because there is no other space that anyone else can place on the board? So the combination of the raw style bidding tiles, limited bidding tiles, added to this spatial auction made Skyrise really satisfying to me. And I love how quick and simple the turns are. On your turn, all you're doing is either passing or placing a building on the board. Super quick and simple turns in the game, but many layers to those decisions. Which building do you choose? Where do you place it? And where do you place it? There are many other layers to that too, in terms of if you actually want to win the place that you are placing the building on. You're looking at like the color of this token and the color of the space itself and what it's relative to, because there are other goals that you're going after. Yeah. Really, really clever game. Skyrise. I really look forward to playing this auction game again. It's my number 3 pick. Number 2, I'm breaking all the rules that I usually have, and I'm picking a Stonemaier game for number 2. Wyrmspan is the only game that we've released so far in 2024. We have also an expansion, Gears of Corruption for Expeditions. But I only did games for this list, not expansions. But yeah, Wyrmspan. I love Wyrmspan. I really, really love Wyrmspan. I love that it takes some core elements of Wingspan, this idea of building a tableau that you're actually going to activate multiple times throughout the game. And then it adds so many different layers of theme and new mechanisms to the game, including the hatchlings. The whole idea that you're going left to right adds a lot to the game, that you're activating all these different spaces until you get to a place where you don't have a dragon card. And because the dragon cards let you walk a little bit further along the path to collect more things. So on this board, instead of just collecting one thing like in Wingspan, you were collecting multiple things depending on how many dragons you have in that row. Powerful end of row benefits. I love the guild. The guild is not shown in this photo. Let's see if we can find the Dragon Guild. Here's some of the hatchlings here. Hatchlings want you to walk past them multiple times and cache multiple things on them often. You get the Dragon Facts book. Here's the Dragon Guild. So the Dragon Guild is it's 2 different things kind of. As you advance on the Dragon Guild, you're gaining one-time benefits. So like when I play red, when I move my token here, I will gain a gem. But when I move my token here or here, and they continue to circulate around this Dragon Guild, I get to place a cube on a limited spot on this particular guild that was selected for this game. There are 4 different guilds in the game. Each one is double-sided with different player counts on it. And these give you powerful one-time benefits or endgame benefits, either endgame scoring, just base points or specific points based on a certain goal. In this case, gain 1 point for every cost printed on all dragons in one of your caves. So one of the rows, you're looking at all the different resource icons on that, the total number of resource icons on dragons in that cave. So yeah, I really like the addition to this. There's just and the speckled eggs, the Dragon Facts book. Obviously, I was very involved in the creation of Wyrmspan. Designer Connie Vogelman did all the work. Elizabeth Hargrave built the foundation with Wingspan, but I was heavily involved as a developer of this game and had a great time doing so. And I have a great time playing the game. I genuinely love playing and teaching Wyrmspan. And so I put it near the top of my list, number 2. Only one game eclipsed it. And on a given day, I would easily choose any of these games. But at number 1, I have The White Castle. I've been looking forward to playing The White Castle for a long time, and I finally got the chance to play it at Geekway, and I've played it, I think, only once since, but I really look forward to playing again. It uses a really streamlined action system where you have these dice that are randomly rolled at the beginning of each round, red, black, and white dice, and the decision that you make on your turn is to choose a die from the right side, so the highest die on that bridge, or the lowest die. Each has a different benefit. When you choose the highest die, that's great because when you place a higher die than either the current die or the printed number on the board, so in this case, this says 3 here. If I have a 6 value die, I put a 6 on top of that, you gain the difference in coins. So I would gain 3 coins if I do that. If I place a lower die, though, I have to pay the difference in coins. So you can always still place a die, but you have to either gain or lose coins to place the die there. So generally good to get higher dice. However, and even on your board too, right on your board, there are 6 value dice here. So 6s are really, really good for placing dice on your board as you get these escalating benefits by placing workers on the board or meeples on the board. But if you select a die from the lower side, you get to activate your lantern benefit. So even though you're probably going to end up paying some coins from the lower side, you have this lantern benefit that is evolving over the course of the game as you gain these cards from the courtier benefit. You're gaining these, you move these meeples up, you gain cards, you replace the current card that you have, and then you shift a card over to the lantern benefit. The lantern benefit gets better and better throughout the game as you're adding more and more cards to it. So using the lower die and getting the lantern benefit feels really good. It's a game of really feeling good about what you're doing on your turn. You only have 9 turns in the game, and so everyone has to feel good, and many of them have combos to them. Like you're doing one thing, you're gaining a bunch of benefits that you built from a previous turn, like the lantern benefit or one of these benefits from the worker rows. And then oftentimes actions then compound into another action. So you're taking a whole nother action on your turn based on the benefit that you gain from the current action. I will say, small mistake that I made recently, be very careful during setup in that these tiles over here, this one tile, this tile, this tile, they need to be on a certain side of that tile. And I set up incorrectly the last time I played, right? I put all of them on the same side, which made certain actions really, really powerful. So be a little careful during setup. Setup is a little fiddly in this game as you put all these little tokens and cards out. But I think the experience is worth it. I've had a great time playing the White Castle, and I really look forward to playing again and trying new strategies in the game. I've heard there might even be an expansion that comes out, and I would play an expansion for this game. I would see what it adds to the game. That's it. That's my top 10 list of 2024 so far. I've played a lot of great games. I've enjoyed a lot of the great games so far this year, and I look forward to seeing what I discover in the second half of the year. But those are my favorites. Those are my favorites so far this year, and we'll see how that changes for my end-of-year list. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are your favorite games that you've played so far in 2024? Why have you enjoyed this so much? Would you recommend them to others? And just let me know your thoughts about those games. So you can do your top 10, your top 5, top 3, even just your number 1 if you have one favorite game. And as I did, you can include digital games, tabletop games that you play digitally, like on Board Game Arena, and games that you primarily play on the tabletop. That's kind of the meat of this discussion. All right. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks.